Welcome to the Pre-Snap Podcast presented by LineStar. Alongside Tyler Wiemann, I'm Shannon Sommerville. We've got your top 5 NFL player prop bets for Week 7. Tyler, last week on the show, we were 3-2 in our picks. Just missed on 2 of those. One of them being, pains me to say it, Amari Cooper. We took him over 50.5 receiving yards. He ended with 42, so didn't deliver for us there. And then your Terry McLaurin over 59.5 receiving yards. I totally thought he was going to get there. He only finished with 53, but our other ones cashed. Chuba Hubbard over 63.5 rushing yards. He had 92. Jahmyr Gibbs over 56.5 rushing yards. He finished with 63. And Zay Flowers over 55.5 receiving yards. 132 for Zay Flowers. How about that? But Amari Cooper, I know last week, Tyler, on the show, you said, you know what? We're probably not going to ever pick him the rest of the season. And then he goes over to the Bills this week. So what's your take on it now?
Yeah, I bet we're picking him next week. He's back on the radar.
That's great because Shannon's Cooper Troopers, the fantasy football team, has indeed Amari Cooper and Cooper Kupp, both of them on my squad. So love to see a positive trade for my own personal, because it's all about me this show, right? We were 3-2 at our picks, so hopefully we can go 5-0 this week. We've got some really great matchups. And of course, we're using the LineStar PropsAI tool to help us find the best value in the prop market. I highly recommend you check it out, LineStarApp.com. Now, there are several ways for you to get a free test spin of LineStar. You just have to download one of our apps and use the promo code LineStar of our partners, and that is Underdog, Sleeper, Chalkboard, Parlay Play. If you use the promo code LineStar, you can get a nice deposit match plus 1 free month of LineStar. So take advantage of that deal. Of course, you do need to play with at least $1 in those entries. So make sure to take advantage of that deal so you can check out the LineStar PropsAI tool, which we will be referencing throughout this video. All right, it is week 7 already. Feels like the season is flying by, but I'm excited about a lot of different matchups this week. It's now the point in the season, Tyler, where I feel like we have enough data to be able to make some really solid picks. What's your take on, week 7 overall?
I agree. We have, almost 2 months worth of data now. We kind of know what these teams are doing. They're not tinkering with their lineups as much. The only real X factor now is bye weeks with teams changing their scheme a little bit.
Yeah.
And then injuries. So,
all right. Well, let's get into our first pick, and it kind of goes off of one of the picks we crushed it with last week. Zay Flowers put up 132 receiving yards against a Washington Commanders defense that was giving up a lot of yards in the passing game. So we're going to go right back to that spot and take Panthers wide receiver Diontae Johnson over 70.5 receiving yards. Now, this probably will go a little bit higher, and it depends on the sports books here, but I think Diontae Johnson's in a great spot. Now, even though he's only averaging 57 receiving yards per game, he did just have 78 against the Atlanta Falcons. And then when you take into account the defense that I talked about, Washington, 31st in pass defense DVOA versus wide receiver ones. Not only did Flowers put up 132, but Amari Cooper, who has been struggle bus all season long, put up at least 60. And then Jamar Chase, we saw him torch this defense for 118, and then Malik Nabers 127. So I like the spot here for Johnson. I realize that this line might seem high, but granted, when you look at that average, Tyler, and this is something I told you before the show, it's like that includes numbers with Bryce Young at quarterback. So this is an entirely different offense with Andy Dalton at the helm, and now going up against a defense that has struggled in allowing explosive pass plays. What's your take?
Yeah, I don't think we can look at the average for Diontae when you have Bryce Young in there. Without Bryce Young, he's averaging 76.5 yards a game with Andy Dalton at quarterback. So I love the spot for it. I think the line is a little bit too low for him here. The other thing is if the line, goes up more, or you're playing on one of the pick'em sites, I think you could go with a fantasy points over or higher. Pretty much Washington ranks 32nd, allowing 1.9 touchdowns per game to the wide receiver. And Diontae has 3 touchdowns in 4 games. So I also like the fantasy points route to go here, but Washington's just been dust versus the wide receiver one, and Diontae's the game in town.
31st in explosive pass plays allowed rate, 29th in defensive EPA per pass play, like just so many stats to support Commanders being bad, and they were already struggling, but now they're missing interior defender Jonathan Allen out for the season with the torn pec. Defensive end Javonte Jean-Baptiste is on IR with ankle injuries, so that will have ripple effects throughout the Commanders defense. So Diontae Johnson in a good spot. We're going over 70.5 receiving yards. Next up to another talented wide receiver who we think the line is just too low here, that we got to take it here. Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill over 54.5 receiving yards. LineStar's projection for Hill is 65.4. The Cheetahs going up against an Indianapolis Colts defense that ranks 20th versus wide receiver ones. That could spell trouble against the Cheetah. DeAndre Hopkins had 54 just last week versus Indianapolis. He saw Brian Thomas and Christian Kirk both go over that 54.5 number. Brian Thomas had 122, Christian Kirk 88. George Pickens 113, Rome Odunze and DJ Moore both surpassed it. Odunze had 112. DJ Moore had 78. I could go on, but basically Tyreek Hill could be in a good spot. I know it's not Tua throwing him the ball, and that we got Snoop Huntley back there, but I think coming off a bye week, they'll scheme for a few plays for Tyreek Hill to get him rolling early. What do you think?
Yeah, that's why I love this one so much. Another thing is that, he started week 4 with Miami after barely practicing with Miami, and then he just stepped in as the starter. So now we have 2 weeks where he's played, a bye week. He knows this system now and can kind of get it going. That is pretty much the amount of time that a training camp is. So I like the spot. I expect Snoop to be much better than he has been with Miami, and I expect them to scheme a little bit more to get Hill open in space, and 54.5 is just low for him.
I mean, it's sad to see that where it is, because if this was Tua throwing him the ball, you knew that'd be pushing triple digits. So I think definitely the talent level for sure is there to surpass that number. And I think it's a good matchup for Tyreek Hill here. So I love the over here for 54. It's like probably one of my favorites of the week, I think, is when I saw that. I was like, ooh, I got to jump on that one pretty quickly. So hopefully it doesn't move too much higher for all of our viewers, but they can hop on that one. Anything else to add on the Tyreek Hill note? Ready for the next
Colts
guy?
haven't been good versus wide receiver 1, and Tyreek's super good. So
all right, let's move on from there. We're going to go to another pretty good wide receiver. We're going to Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. Over 75.5 receiving yards. LineStar's projection is 89.4. The consensus is 80. Now he's only averaging 59 receiving yards per game, but when Tyler, you brought this one to my attention, and going up against a Minnesota Vikings defense that on the surface is pretty good. So that's immediately my reaction was like, I don't know. Minnesota Vikings are pretty tough. But when you look a little bit further into it, specifically versus wide receiver ones is what I'm talking about. 14th in pass defense DVOA versus wide receiver ones. Garrett Wilson did have 101. Jaden Reed 139. Nico Collins 86. Deebo Samuel had 110 against them. So I think this is actually a pretty good spot for Amon-Ra St. Brown. We did take him last week in one of our other shows for over his receiving yards against the Cowboys. But looking back on that, I think that we took him in a matchup that probably lent itself to some other playmakers on that Detroit Lions team. We did have the Gibbs play as well. But just talking about this matchup this week, what intrigues you about Amon-Ra St. Brown? The slot merchant. I don't know if you saw the shots fired from George Pickens about him being a slot merchant.
Man, Pickens needs to work on actually playing every single snap, not worrying about what Amon-Ra does.
Exactly.
But look, I think we kind of made a mistake picking Amon-Ra last week. And the reason being is this Detroit Lions team is just so much different than it was last year. They're so much better, so much more dominant, and they've really controlled every single game outside of the one with Tampa Bay this week or this year. And in that game with Tampa Bay, it is the only game where Jared Goff has had to actually throw the ball. Every other game this season, he only has 18 completions. They just have not had to rely on passing the ball very much because they're just controlling it, and they're dominating the line of scrimmage. They're dominating rushing, and they're totally fine just handing the ball off, taking the win, and moving on. But this game, I don't think, is going to go that way. Minnesota's good stopping the rush. It's going to probably be a close game down to the wire. And they're going to need to use all their weapons. And Amon-Ra is their best weapon. He's good versus 2 high safeties. And we have Minnesota at 28th versus the wide receiver 1 on our team defense tool. And they're allowing almost 228 yards per game to the wide receiver over the last 4 weeks. He has also averaged 90.3 yards per game versus Minnesota in his career.
Mm-hmm. And I like that you mentioned that, this is a game where we're going to have to lean on the passing a little bit. I just looked up where Minnesota Vikings rank in terms of the rush defense DVOA. They're number 1. So it's not like a game where they can just hand the rock off to David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and let them do work and then just, basically have it team cardio for the wide receivers. But they're going to have to work in their wide receivers a lot and really game plan to keep it competitive with this very good Vikings defense, but that has been gotten to in the passing game. And so I like the spot here for Amon-Ra St. Brown, the slot merchant, in the words of George Pickens. Whew, shots fired. And if you think that other players if Amon-Ra is not sitting there like, oh, I'm going to get my revenge for that comment and put up like 100 yards or something.
Oh,
not that they're going to game plan
Netflix
for that,
show,
but oh yeah, I know. Receivers.
He goes over everybody that was drafted before him every single game. Like, you just added another one that he's going to go over.
Yeah, basically, slot merchant is now pinned to his bulletin board. So when he wakes up every morning, he can see that, and he's going to be motivated for this one. Like that spot there. Mm-hmm. All right, now it is time for Tyler and I to give our favorite prop picks of the week. So, Tyler, what you got for week 7?
I'm going to go to the other side of that game. We are going with Justin Jefferson, over 92.5 receiving yards. Our LineStar projection's 100. He's been over 60% of games this year. And Detroit is allowing 211.2 yards per game to the wide receiver. Detroit lost its best defensive player in Hutchinson. Hope you get well soon. That looked ugly, brutal. But he's a great pass rusher. It's going to give Darnold a little bit more time to sling that rock. Detroit is 14th versus wide receiver 1. But there's a big but here. Justin Jefferson is averaging 134 yards per game versus Detroit. He has 1,073 yards in 8 games versus Detroit. He has just crushed him, and he's been over in 6 of 8 of those games. I love the spot. He's averaging almost 98 yards a game over the last 4. Everything, it checks all the boxes for me. Let's go Justin Jefferson.
And it's not even like Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold has proven to be that huge of a drop-off in terms of their offense. Yeah, it's crazy to see him, putting up those numbers consistently, but like the spot there for Justin Jefferson. We'll see the gritty for sure. I'm sure in that game we'll see plenty of grittying. All right, why not make this just a complete wide receiver show here? I've got to go with Giants wide receiver Malik Nabers, who is just off the injury report after having a concussion. He sat out. He even went to a concert last week, so I think he's healthy in this one. But going over 71.5 receiving yards is one that I'm comfortable taking because LineStar's projection is at 79. He's been over in 3 of 4 games, averaging 96.5 receiving yards per game. Now, he returned, as I mentioned, as a limited participant after the concussion. So this was one that I was kind of waiting on to see when it would pop up, and immediately I took it. Going up against a Philadelphia Eagles defense that ranks 32nd, dead last in pass defense DVOA versus opposing teams wide receiver 1. Now, Amari Cooper only had 42, but let's face it, that Browns offense is miserable. But Mike Evans got there for 94 yards. Chris Olave had 86. And we even saw Jordan Reed put up 158 against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. So I definitely think Malik Nabers will get there. The Giants are also 3-point home underdogs in this one. And I think especially we just saw that Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns on the defense are listed as not participating. So they could be a little banged up on defense, which means more pressure on the offense to put up some points and keep up with that Eagles offense that is going to be scoring points in this one. It's Saquon's, revenge game. I think they'll be putting up a lot of points. So Daniel Jones is going to have to find his star rookie wide receiver, and I think he's going to. Malik Nabers already has proven to be quite the stud and the reason they drafted him in the first round. So I'm rolling with Nabers here over 71.5 receiving yards. And make sure that if you haven't checked out our Underdog Pick'em show, to go check that out, because we have 5 other picks that we like that are also applicable to the sports books as well. So I will link that show right after this show so you can go check out those picks as well. And just pair, what you like if you're playing on Underdog, Parlay Play, Sleeper, Chalkboard. Remember, if you don't have those apps yet, to use the promo code LineStar so you can get a deposit match plus 1 free month of LineStar for those picks. But we also had a couple other ones that were kind of on the cutting room floor of our picks, but I'll drop them in the comments for you guys, and you can let me know what you think of the picks for this week. And if you've got any of your own that are absolute locks, you got to drop them in the comments. We're all trying to help each other out and beat the books this week in week 7. I think we can do it. Last week we got a little unlucky in that department, but I think we're in store for a 5-0 week. It's coming. I'm feeling it. These are good picks this week. Tyler, anything else to add to the mix here? Cooper, we might go back there.
Yeah,
Crazy
we could go
week
back
of trades.
there.
Ahead.
The one thing I wanted to add that we don't ever really bring up on this show is, if you guys like the picks, you like the, all the stats that we put with it. If you guys have not tried LineStar, which that's what we use for our prop picks, PropsAI, there's a free 7-day trial through the app stores. You just have to have never used us before to qualify for that. But go through the app stores, Android or iOS, and get 7 free days.
That's an awesome tip there. Yeah, LineStar's been helping us crush it. And also, Tyler, been helping you crush it in DFS. If you haven't checked out Takedown Tyler's DFS breakdowns, make sure to do so, because, what was it, 20K takedown a week or 2 ago? Man.
Yep.
That's awesome. I'm sure there are more in store. We also had another colleague of ours on the LineStar app have a takedown. It's just been people winning money. I want to take down now. I got to listen to Tyler's DFS breakdown, though, to get that. So I'm still a novice in my DFS. But prop betting, we're winning money. I had a nice ticket just the other day. So good luck in all of your sports betting endeavors for week 7. It should be a fun one. I'm really excited for some of these matchups. And if you have any questions, if any lines have moved too far one way or the other, drop it in the comments. We'll try to reply to you in terms of if we think a prop is worth playing anymore, or if maybe it's switched to the values in the under. We'll let you know in the comments what we think and give our advice. So good luck out there. Let's go win some money. We'll see you guys next time.